in for legs at the coach. As always, starting with side delts and arms, because they're a weak area for me, like I always say. And then we'll head into the rest of the leg day. First movement of the day, the side raise machine. Good thing about this Cybex one is you can come up a lot higher than a lot of other side raise machines. So I'm going to actually come into a range of motion that you don't really tend to see with a lot of side raises, because this machine allows you to do so. I'm going to be getting some trap involvement as a result of that, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. In terms of setup with this machine, you're going to have a pivot point here. Now you want to align your shoulder joint with that pivot point, or another way you can test if you've got it in the right position is whether this pad moves up and down on your arm. So for me, I've set the pad in a position where I know it's not going to move. The seat is on setting number 4, and I know for me, when I go through the range of motion, this pad doesn't move up and down my arm. Need to wake up, man. I know within myself that set could have been a lot more explosive, but sometimes it takes me 1 or 2 sets to get going. But at the end of the day, I should be using my warm-up sets for that. I think when you get to a certain stage of your training, you know your body very well, and you know whether you're applying yourself 100% to all of your sets. And you know I could have done that set a lot better, but at the end of the day, it starts with having awareness of it. And I know that now I'm aware of it, the next set is going to be a lot better. And the next set is a myo rep set. So I'll take it to failure, take 5 deep breaths, and go again with the same load, and repeat that process until I can't complete more than 3 reps. Moving on to some bicep work now. This machine is probably older than a lot of people that come to this gym, but it's fantastic. And again, similar to the side raise machine, it's got the pivot point here. So I've adjusted the seat so that my elbow sits in line with that pivot point. What I also do is just shift my bum forward in the seat a touch, just so I'm getting a bit of a better stretch from the biceps at the bottom. With isolation movements, I really like pausing in the change in direction. Just really helps me place the tension on the muscle I'm trying to train. So yeah, I won't be able to lift as much from doing that, but the connection I get with the muscle I'm trying to train is far greater. And arguably, you're placing more stimulus on the target muscle as a result. So for me, that works really well. You know, you might not find that as beneficial or enjoy it as much, so you just got to do what works for you at the end of the day. Oh yeah. Next up, I've got the seated ham, just jumping in with someone else, so I'm waiting for a little bit. Now, the reason why I do a lot of my isolation work before my heavy compounds is because for me, it helps me get a lot of blood into the joints prior to the heavy lifting. And my quads are already quite a strong point on my physique, so I don't necessarily need to prioritize them as much. Whereas the thickness of my legs from the front and the back are a bit more of a priority. So that's why I do adductors early on, as well as hamstrings, because they're an area that I really want to bring up. And then yeah, obviously smash them with the 3 sets on the hack squat. So that's going to be fun. If I don't do the seated ham and the leg extension before the hack, I tend to get a little bit of a knee niggle. So again, it just ties into that point of getting some blood into the muscle beforehand. Obviously it helps with the mind muscle connection as well. You go in to a hack squat set after 2 sets on leg extension, your quads, they're absolutely pumped to fuck, and you get incredible connection on the hack squat. It's actually pretty excruciating, so got that to look forward to. I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty fucked. I think the deload is definitely due soon because sleep's been affected. Obviously from a training standpoint, everything looks fine, but that's because I'm just coming out the back end of prep having not tracked any previous numbers. You know, the first session I had back tracking was Sunday, so I don't know if my performance is dipping. Obviously body weight is climbing, so that's going to have an impact on training performance in a positive manner. But just day to day, I feel fatigued. However, I'm in a sticky situation because we're going to Cornwall in like 2 weeks time, and ideally I want to save the deload for then. But so I know I could do with it now, so it's whether I do some like de-volume sessions and then wait for the deload out there, or just stick with it until we get to Cornwall. But anyway, enough fucking moaning from me. Onto the hack squat now. I was going to do 2 sets on the leg extension, but with how I'm feeling, I want to save my energy for this. So I've just done 1 warm-up set on the leg extension to get the benefit from like the blood flow standpoint to the joints, like I said. And I'm hoping my knee feels okay with this. If not, then I'll address it at that point. But if it feels a bit tetchy, I'll just aim for higher reps on this, you know. For me, if I go over 10, it tends to be absolutely fine. Anything like under or around the 7 mark, that tends to be where I get a little bit of knee niggle. So for me, I have my feet as low as I can get on the platform here without coming up onto my heels too much. Basically, the goal is to get as much knee bend as possible. That's the great thing about this hack squat. You can get a fantastic range of motion. With me, I have my feet about hip width apart, toes turned outwards slightly. As I lower the weight down, I'm taking in that breath. So I start taking in my breath here. Brace hard. A slight pause in the change in direction. Drive up. Feeling good.
Let's go then. Nice. Now working, come on. Come on. Nice. Good. Let's go. Nice. Good. Yeah, with me. Go on. Oh, you drive. Very nice. That's quite a lot.
Thanks. Not bad, eh? I think I got that for like 7 or 8 last week.
That's
so
definitely more than 8.
10.
Yeah.
Take that. I feel absolutely fucked as well.
Really?
I need a deload. Bad. Onto the leg extension next. A little tip that I'm going to give you is, if you can, do this safely and pain-free. Recline the seat as far back as you can get it. What that's going to do is open up your hip angle, so you're stretching the rec fem, the rectus femoris, at the hip joint as well as at the knee joint. So you're stretching it from the 2 attachment points. And as we know, for the majority of this that you do, the more stretch you can get a muscle, safely of course, the better it's going to be. Now this is the only quad movement that allows you to train that muscle in a fully contracted position. So we want to make sure we get it into that fully contracted position. The way you know you're doing that is you want to be able to draw a straight line from your hip to your knee to your ankle at the top of each rep. So as I come up, you'll see there, quad fully contracted, you could draw a straight line. A lot of people stop there and they just kick the weight up. So you're missing out on that top end range of motion, where you can only do that on this piece of kit. So make sure you get the quad fully contracted on these. 2 sets here, 10 to 15 reps. After the hack as well. They burn. Right, next movement, just 1 set on a dumbbell RDL. So I'm doing this paired with the abductor as my glute movements. So first time really doing like a hip hinge this late in a session, but I actually got this idea from John Jewett. I've seen it on his YouTube. So I want to give it a try as well, see how we get on. When it comes to a hip hinge that you're going to feel in your glutes, for me, a dumbbell beats the barbell just because you can alter the position of the dumbbells, whereas with the barbell, you're kind of fixed here, which means that you can pull it more of your center of gravity and as a result, push your hips back further. So for me and a lot of clients I work with, if they're struggling to feel a hip hinge in their glutes, then I'll either go for a dumbbell hip hinge like this or do a single leg variation. Both work really well. So we're going to try the 45s. Nice pause in the stretch here as well. Oh, fuck me, that was not pleasant. 15 reps, Jesus. Final one of the day, the abductor, the fluff work. Just doing a myo rep set here. Well, depends how many reps I get on this first one. If I go over 10, I'll do a myo set. If I go under 10, I'll do a drop set. But yeah, just ticking the box of training the glute in a bit more of a shortened position now. Done the lengthen work. Now I'm trying to, like I said, train in a more contracted position, which this machine is very good for. So I just like a slight forward lean on here, just to bias the glute max a little bit more. Pause at the top. And that is legs, all done and dusted. Absolutely fucked, can't lie. I was going to do a bit of a physique update, but I'm really not in the mood for it. If you're watching this and you don't follow me on Instagram, I'll post a little bit more behind the scenes stuff on there, so be sure to drop me a follow. All my links for socials will be down below. Got to now drive home. I live about 25 minutes away from the gym, so bit of a drive and post-workout meal, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about my off-season plans.
So this is probably the part of the YouTube video that you come for. How I've managed to take my quads from looking like this to looking like this, and now arguably my strongest body part. Before I continue, please ignore the IKEA box in the background. We're going through a bit of a refurb of the old man cave. But anyway, we're going to jump straight into the first point, and that is the most important point, not just when it comes to growing your quads, but any muscle group. Intensity. Your ability to take sets to failure is going to dictate the rate at which you progress a muscle group more than anything else. If you look at all the people that have the most amount of muscle, what's the one thing they all have in common? They all train fucking hard, okay? Some harder than others. No matter what, you have to train hard for your legs to grow. And as we know, when it comes to training your legs, especially your quads, the pain you have to endure is different to upper body. So you need to be able to increase your pain tolerance. So I guess that ties into the intensity point. Push yourself more and more, and over time your pain tolerance will increase, and also your ability to take those sets to failure. But other things you can do to increase your intensity is training with others that train harder than you, whether that's a coach, a PT, friends, family, your fucking dog. Train with others that train like animals, that are gonna push you outside of your comfort zone. Yes, it's gonna be painful, but you're gonna learn a lot from those sessions. And when you go back to your normal training, you're gonna train a lot harder, trust me. And it's why I train with all of the online clients that I work with, and then obviously the PT clients as well. Record yourself in the gym. Watch the speed of those reps as you get to that failure point. Are they gradually slowing down? Or does your first rep look the same speed as your last rep? Because if it does, there's a bit of an issue there. It should be a gradual decrease in rep speed as you get to that failure point. And you want to get to the point where you physically cannot complete another rep with good form, okay? And on that point, you don't want to take reps at the detriment of good form. If you're having to alter your body position, swing the weight up or whatever, you're defeating the object of the movement. You're trying to place tension on a specific muscle, in this instance the quads. If you're having to alter your form, you're likely using other muscle groups to help you move that load. And like I said, it's about placing tension on a specific muscle. Watch others that train hard. YouTube, there's membership sites like Natural Bodybuilding Worldwide. Physique, Collective, trained by JP. And the final point that ties into intensity that I think a lot of people miss out on is your explosiveness during the concentric phase. I'm all for having good control, but I feel like often people focus so much on good control that they miss out on that effort during the concentric phase or the lifting phase. You need to be slow with the eccentrics and you're changing direction, but when it comes to that concentric, it needs to be fast and explosive, but still with good control. So you're not throwing the weight up, but you're being explosive, okay? So that is where the muscle is built during that phase, okay? So be super explosive and try to generate as much power during that concentric phase. The second point is range of motion. Especially when it comes to training the quads, you want to take them through as large of a range of motion as you can. We know now from new studies that have been coming out on training the muscle in that stretch position that especially the legs really benefit from being trained in that deep stretch. So when you're doing your quad compounds, focus on getting as much knee bend as you physically can, okay? As long as you can do it safely, more knee bend the better. And contrary to belief, it's actually healthier for your joints to take them through a larger range of motion with a suitable load. So focus on knee flexion, knee bend to maximize your quad gains. The third point is progressive overload. So what I mean by this is trying to do more reps with the same weight or do more weight for the same amount of reps. If you do that over time, your quads will have no option but to grow. But the key here is standardization of your form. So if your form changes in order to just add more weight or get more reps, you're defeating the object of it again. And if you want a free video on how to lay out your logbook effectively, comment the word logbook down below and I'll ping that across. The next point is control throughout your reps. So you need to think about the speed of the eccentric, which is the lowering phase where the muscle's going from a shortened position to a lengthened position. Make sure you spend a good amount of time there, 3 to 4 seconds. I would definitely consider pausing in that change in direction as well. So you'll see with my hack squat sets, I come down, I pause it in the lengthened position, and then I drive up. And what this limits is any kind of momentum or any kind of stretch reflex you're gonna get out of the movement. You're not like dropping and catching the weight at the bottom. You're slowing it down, you're placing tension on that muscle, and you're using that muscle to then move the weight back up. The next point is breathing and bracing. This is the point that often gets very much overlooked, and not a lot of people in my experience of coaching know how to breathe and brace correctly. And this is important across all of your lifts, but especially lower body training, because you're often going to be loading the spine in a lot of the lower body movements you're doing. So it's important to be braced correctly to not only generate the most amount of force, but also to lift safely, okay? So what you want to think about doing is, let's take the hack squat set for example. As you're going through that eccentric phase, as you're lowering the weight down, you're taking in that breath, okay? So imagine I'm on the hack squat, I'm lowering it down. I take a breath in and I imagine that someone is about to punch me in the stomach. You want to brace your core hard. The analogy I like to use is that of a Coke can. Imagine you've got a full Coke can that's not been cracked, it's full of pressure. It's hard to break, right? Whereas if you've cracked that Coke can and emptied it out, it's much easier to break. So you've got to think of your midsection like that Coke can, okay? You remember that one. So we want a hard Coke can, people. And that's how you're going to generate the most amount of force, lift safely, and get the most out of your reps. Simple. The next point is your exercise selection. So a couple of points kind of tie into this. Firstly, picking movements that you connect well with. You know, there's no one singular movement that you have to do to build big quads. A lot of people will tell you, you need to do barbell squats to build your quads. That's not true. I've not done barbell squats for years and I've got pretty big quads, I would say. So pick movements you connect well with and you can do pain-free. You might not be able to do a barbell squat because you get hip pain and you get knee pain, but you jump on the hack squat and you're absolutely fine. Or you can't do the hack squat, but you can do the pendulum. Or you can't do the pendulum, but you can do the leg press. At the end of the day, you're just focusing on getting a good amount of knee bend. So whatever machine or movement you can do to replicate that sort of range of motion, run with that. Your exercise order also matters. So you'll see from the video that I've just kind of overlaid over the top of this, The reason why I do some of my isolation work prior to the heavy compounds is because I do get a little bit of a knee niggle sometimes. So I tactically place those isolations prior to my compounds to help warm up the joints, establish a good mind-muscle connection as well going into that compound lift. So if you need to, have a bit of a play around with your exercise selection, and that can go the same with, you know, your pressing work or your pulling work. A lot of people tend to get a bit of a shoulder niggle when they do pressing work. So you could consider doing side lateral raises or the pec deck prior to heavy compounds. And you know, you can get a benefit from training that muscle in the contracted position prior to the lengthened position. Often I'll do the leg extension before the hack squat because you're training the quad in that shortened range, and your ability to get that muscle into a contracted position will diminish as you build up fatigue throughout a session. So my ability to get into that fully contracted position with a good amount of load is going to be far greater at the start of the session than at the end, because like I said, as you accumulate fatigue throughout the session, you're not going to be able to get the muscle in as of a contracted position as you did at the start. So sometimes it makes sense to train that shorter range first. But if you kind of want to tick all the boxes of overall quad development, I would pick one movement that trains the quad in the shortened position, leg extension, that's the only one. A movement that trains the muscle in the lengthened position. Don't get me wrong, it's not just a case of doing one, you can pick a variety. And then a single leg movement as well, okay? So maybe like a lunge or a split squat or a single leg press. They're good options. So that's all the training stuff kind of covered. Now you want to consider stuff outside of the gym as well, which we'll kind of group all into one. So sleep, very important and often overlooked. You want to be sleeping like a baby, good sleep routine, get a minimum of 7 hours if you can. Really focus on nailing that sleep routine, because that's like, if there was the dream supplement that people could sell, it would be just to improve their sleep, and not enough people focus on good quality sleep, you know. And the amount of people I talk to that will slam a pre-workout at 5 p.m. and then go and train, that's going to be impacting your sleep quality big time. So, you know, on that point, if you're having that, cut off the caffeine after 2 p.m. because it's going to impact your sleep quality, I promise you. Calorie surplus, of course, ideal to be able to be in a position to build muscle. So get yourself in a position to go into a calorie surplus. If you're too fat, do a diet first, get lean, and then slowly build your calories up over time. Stress management, trying to keep stress to a minimum. We want to be in what's called a parasympathetic state for as long as we can throughout the day, because that allows the body to be in a position to recover effectively. If you're constantly in that fight or flight state, or also known as the sympathetic state, your body's not able to recover as well. So keep stress to a minimum. Think of stuff that is stressing you out that you're in control of, and eliminate as many of those things as you can in your life. And then practice things that will help your overall mindfulness, whether that's reading a book before bed, journaling, therapy, you know, all of these things I've tried and they work fantastically. So I know it sounds a bit like, I'm not gonna do that, fuck off sort of thing, but trust me, it works, okay? Not for everyone, of course, but you've got to find what works for you and implement those into your daily lifestyle. Hydration, making sure you are well hydrated, of course, drinking plenty of water, and also supplementation. So things like creatine. If you're a serious lifter, you should be taking creatine, and then any other supplements that can aid in that muscle building process or muscle recovery process are obviously going to be beneficial, and being consistent with those things. And that leads us on to the final point, consistency. You can do all of these for 1 week, but that's not going to cut it. You need to do it week in, week out, month in, month out, for years on end, because building muscle takes fucking time. So learn how to enjoy the process, you know? Find a training plan that you enjoy, rinse and repeat. Be consistent with all those things that I listed. You're gonna build some serious legs. Hope that helped. We will wrap up the video there. If you've got this far, fair play, and I will catch you in the next one. See ya.